Hey friends, it's Melvin. Thanks for tuning into this episode. Here's just a few quick things I wanted to notify you guys about before we get started. First up, very soon, new episodes will be releasing Wednesday mornings rather than Tuesday. So don't panic if you don't see a new episode on Tuesday. Just wait a little longer and you'll see it in your feed. Second, we've introduced a mailbag. Check those show notes and toward the bottom you'll see a mailbag link. You'll then be able to text us any questions you might have about movies, the movie industry, or any movie/Christian related questions you might have. Then we'll respond in a future episode, so send us your questions now. Up next, Patreon polls, which are available to Patreon supporters at the $3 tier or higher, have been updated. Supporters can now suggest films or shows to be reviewed at the end of each month. The two most liked submissions will become the options for the Patreon poll, so if you want to hear us talk about your favorite movie or show, join our Patreon and start campaigning. And lastly, whether you're a new or longtime listener, please consider writing a review or rating the Cinematic Doctrine podcast on iTunes and Spotify. Apart from financially supporting on Patreon, these are the two most helpful ways to support the show. And that's it. Enjoy the episode. You're listening to Cinematic Doctrine. So we're recording for Invincible, but I thought we were recording for Inside Out. I'm sorry, not Inside Out. What is it? Inside? What was? I don't even remember what we. Yeah, we were gonna do Inside, but then no. What's the timeline? Daniel then thought we were doing Invincible, so now we're sitting here doing Invincible, which is exciting. But if anyone has watched Bo Burnham's Inside yet, and was like, yeah, can't wait to hear what these podcasters are going to think about with that, and they're going to prepare for it, and they're going to be in the headspace for it. I was not in the headspace to talk about Invincible, man. So we'll see how this goes, and I'm sure as this continues, Daniel, either you'll carry this episode, or I will have gone full Omni-Man, and I'll take complete control of this episode. And demand your respect or something. I don't know. What's up, Dan? How you doing?
That was a very anxiety-inducing 30 seconds of audio.
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh, you threatened me with Omni-Man.
No, it's just like first off, whenever we do these, you'll just launch into whatever you're gonna say, and you just started talking, and it was like your mouth and brain didn't know what the other one was doing. You're just like, we were supposed to record for Inside Out, and I was like, I thought about like interjecting to be like, oh, you mean Inside? But I just decided to see where that went. It just kept getting worse.
Just start talking about sadness and happiness as they go travel through like the inner recesses of Bo Burnham's brain during COVID-19.
Yeah, I don't know why wasn't prepared for Inside, because you texted me, you're like, hey, we should record for Inside. I was like, that's a great idea. And you're like, you'll have it watched by tomorrow, right? And I was like, yeah, of course. And I don't know if I just like, I'm not going to use this as an excuse all the time, but everyone who's in ministry probably can relate to this. It's not nearly I don't have it nearly as bad as some people I know, but you just get a lot of messages all the time. And so I've gotten this pattern of just being like, oh yeah, sure, to like almost every message I get.
Cool.
Because
just texting back cool.
Technically it doesn't mean yes or no. It's just like, yeah, just acknowledgement of reception. And I probably just did that. Also, like, I also had to help out with youth group, which is weird because I don't like kids like at all. But like they were talking about Loki, and I was like, yeah, Loki. And so I was like, in my brain, I was like, Loki. And then he sent me the link for this. And it was like, Bo Burnham's Inside. I was like, oh no. And so
that's awesome.
I don't hate kids. I just don't like get them. There's something about the ages of like,
wait, 10... what are you talking about kids now for? Why did you
No, because I just often was like, I don't like kids. And I was like, well, I don't know if I want that just to hang in the air forever.
Says the guy who's working in youth group, or was asked for a minute to do youth group.
Something about the ages of 10 to like 18 just don't connect with me. It's this weird mixture of like they're self-aware enough to be mean and like
not understand sarcasm half the time.
But they don't have like all of their empathy juices in their brain haven't activated yet.
Right.
And it's not until like college is great because it's like they still they're still dumb enough to dream and to have they want to do stuff. They're like, I'm going to change the world, but they're and mature and smart enough to have like conversations. So it's like, that's a hopeful age to work with. I like working with college students because you can like help mold them into their future and stuff. While teenagers, it's like half the time I don't understand what they're talking about. And the other half of the time, they're just saying things that are mean.
It's a whole other language.
Yeah.
Zoomer language.
And I'm like ashamed that half the time I do know what they're talking about. I'm just like, I'm too old to know to know what this is. I shouldn't be able to be a part of this conversation.
And so you reorient your gaze to the boomers for your ridicule.
I don't know. I feel like there's a growing generation of people around my age, which I realize people probably listening to this don't know, but I'm closer to 30 than 20. That's what I'll say. But it's like weird where like, I don't know if it's just my generation of people who are really immature, but I don't feel quite comfortable around like 50 and 40-year-olds. And I obviously am too old to hang out with like teenagers. But like, we're also about to talk about a cartoon that we watched on Amazon Prime. So like,
yeah, that like your 13-year-old kind of scary gun-owning cousin probably loves. And nobody understands him, but someone really should, or else something bad's gonna happen.
Although, in my defense, my 40-year-old pastor I work with was the first person to ask me if I'd seen this. He was like, "Have you watched Invincible yet?" And I was like, "No." Should you have seen Invincible? You know?
Yeah.
He also has watched all of The Boys, apparently. So it's weird. He like doesn't watch any Marvel movies or DC movies, but he watches TV shows. So he's seen all of like Game of Thrones and stuff. He's just a TV show like junkie. I don't know what it is.
There's a different kind of investment and like excitement to a long running series. But for me, that's just risk. It just means you can nosedive. Like Falcon, which is only 6 episodes, but Falcon was exactly that, where it's like you can put all this investment, you can forgive dumb decisions, but then if like the ending is very sour and disappointing and is just sort of like, I don't know, a ruined climax, it's just frustrating. It's so like, why'd you do this to me for 6 hours? Like, why couldn't you just be 90 minutes so that if I'm disappointed, at least the sun's still out? I don't know. It's just, I completely understand, but I also am glad to just be more of a movie guy than a show guy.
Right? Yeah.
But here we are,
exactly
3 episodes in a row talking about shows. So what do I know?
Well, this was the period of human history where everyone became a binger. You know,
it's true. And then COVID-19 definitely made people bingers. I mean, what was it? There's a YouTube group we watch called Red Letter Media, and one of the hosts literally during quarantine was like, I'm just going to watch all of Simpsons. And he just did.
It's wild.
So much so that he was even like, yeah, the show's gotten better in the last few seasons. And you're like, dude, it's 30 seasons. How much are you binging the show?
One of my favorite YouTube people, Jenny Nicholson, she watched all of the Barbie animated films.
Is that a newer one? Because I know
and Land Before Time.
I think the last Jenny Nicholson release I saw but didn't watch yet, was it the True Blood or what? Vampire Diaries?
Oh yeah, she watched and
it was just like,
it's 2.5 hours. I've watched the video like 5 times. It's a great background if you're doing work or something. You can just throw it on in the background and do something else.
Yeah, most of the time, whenever like even her book readings, I was like doing dishes or getting chores done, and the book readings were really good.
Trigger warning is one of the best YouTube videos ever made.
It's so funny. It's so funny.
It's a masterpiece.
So I guess that's our recommendation section done. Moving onward, Daniel, why don't you introduce Invincible for us?
I don't know if any television show is as good as Jenny Nicholson's review of Trigger Warning, but Invincible is a 2021 animated television series produced by Amazon Prime Video. It is, of course, based on Robert Kirkman's Invincible comic book series, which comes from Image Comics, the most consistently awesome comic book publisher in the world. If you're looking for a good comic to start, I'd highly recommend Image Comics. Invincible stars young Mark Grayson, voiced by Stephen Yeun, who is terrific in this. He is a boy who is the child of his mom, whose name I can never remember, and Omni-Man, who is the world's most premier beloved superhero. He's a clear analog for Superman. And so in the world of Invincible, we do not have recognizable Marvel or DC IP. However, there is quite a few superheroes who certainly remind us of quite a few famous superheroes.
Yep.
However, very early on, their version of Justice League is horrifically murdered, and it's unclear to the people in the universe who did it. It's very clear to the viewers. Simultaneous to this, Mark Grayson starts to develop superpowers, and so his father takes on trying to train him to become a superhero, which Mark Grayson names himself Invincible, for which the series is named. And so for 8 episodes, you simultaneously watch a mystery unfold as to what happened to the Guardians, as well as Mark Grayson coming into his own as a superhero, learning the ropes and the ins and outs of what it means to be a hero in a world that is not quite as straightforward as he perhaps once thought. So I quite enjoyed Invincible. I think, just to give it away right at the beginning, I think Invincible is one of the most compelling and interesting recent superhero shows, movies, whatever, to have come out in recent memory. I loved it.
Yeah, so much so you recommended it, I think, on our first episode back.
I did, yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, so I guess I've already recommended it, and I already say it's good. So what did you think, Melvin?
Well, first off, I'm getting nudged by a producer named Ted. I don't know if you remember that we had a producer named Ted who's saying we got to go to a call to action real quick. So let's. Oh,
I was supposed to prompt you.
It's all good. Ted's here. He's got it.
Can I get a take 2 on that?
We're all good. We got it. Here's your call to action, friendos, to make sure you guys, follow us on social media. There it is. Hey there, it's your friendly neighborhood call to action. Just checking in on you. Hope you're doing all right. I'm just stopping by to say, if you enjoy the show, you can always subscribe and write a review for Cinematic Doctrine. There's iTunes, Podchaser, basically anywhere you listen. You can give us a shout out with a thumbs up, 5 stars, gripping positivity. Or if you hate the show, you can say that too.
Wait, what? What are you saying? Why are you saying
Well, I'm not going to tell them what to do, Ted. They're free to do what they want. Our analytics say we got a lot of listeners in the US, and they love their freedoms. And you're also free to check out our Twitter. Very active there. We host polls, memes. There's also the Cinematic Doctrine Facebook group called Cinematic Doctrine Facebook Group. If you want to join, just answer the questions, read the rules, and tell them the podcast sent you. Also, you should check out our website. Some really cool stuff there. Editorials, written reviews for movies we haven't had time to cover. Always check out cinematicdoctrine.com when you get the chance. Oh, Ted also told me I shouldn't forget to mention the Patreon. Something about you can support us or something? Wait, Ted, I thought this was like a hobby thing. You want me to
expand Cinematic Doctrine. You know this already.
Right. Yeah, I forgot. I'm the one who put all this together. Yeah, Cinematic Doctrine has a Patreon. For as low as $3 a month, you can gain access to exclusive content like The Pre-Show, which features free-form and Christian-friendly discussions on all kinds of topics, as well as influence the podcast. That's right, each month you get to vote on a movie we discuss on the show. Previous movies our lovely Patreon supporters have chosen are To All the Boys I've Loved Before, Hamilton, Onward, and American Gospel Christ Alone. Huh, you guys have good taste. Anyways, I gotta run, so I'll see you guys later. And we're back, because editing's amazing. And the magic of editing, so wonderful. I love this show, dude. I've been wanting to watch it again, and my wife really loved it. She loves comic books. She loves X-Men style storytelling, where it's just like a lot of different characters as opposed to just the one hero. Yeah. And sort of like the acceptance of this is how it is kind of storytelling, as opposed to certain Marvel film. I actually think like WandaVision and Falcon both show that like these are people who just exist and the world's accepted that they exist. Whereas like all of the movies have sort of always played up like they're heroes and like not like us at all. And Invincible is like they're heroes and they have the exact same problems you and I do. Like Adam Eve is such a good character, and she just has difficulty with her parents. Yep. So she runs away, and like that's totally normal. And she just has the ability to make her own house, as opposed to most runaways, which just take like a book bag and then I don't know, get lost and then go back home.
They wrap a bed sheet around a pole, throw it over their shoulder.
Right. Exactly.
The train tracks.
So it goes. So it's just a really fun show in that sense. It's also, I mean, if people know about Invincible, this is probably the first thing they're told about it, is that it's ridiculously violent. But I would almost say like it's violent sparingly. Yeah. Because only like, I would say 4 scenes in the show are violent. There's the initial Guardians being murdered scene. There's Invincible learning that being a superhero puts you on a totally different like mortality field versus humans. There's a scene in the middle of the series, and you would probably consider that the like second act pitfall before the climax. And then there's like the final 2 episodes, which are just wild. Just absolutely wild, dude. It's like if you took Man of Steel's 40-minute just terrible fight scene of nonsense, but then like, oh yeah, people bleed. It's just like that's this scene at the end. And yet, unlike Man of Steel, the series has the audacity, the care and passion for its characters to be like, the show doesn't end on this crazy scene. It ends on like 20 to 30 minutes of resolution and character drama. And that's what, I don't know. It's a great show. The fact that it sort of doesn't like, to compare to The Boys, where The Boys sort of plays up cynically violence, this show recognizes violence as a narrative choice and a plot point to affect your characters. Like literally the heroes, when Invincible first gets into his fight, can't do anything and just leaves. The other heroes are like, yeah, he just wasn't prepared for like the trauma that comes from like villains killing civilians,
right?
And not being able to save everybody. And then Invincible has like, as a character, this really good side story that's only like 2 episodes as he's waiting to really hear how the civilian's doing, because these things are affecting him. And so it's got good action, it's got weight to it, it's got good drama, it's got fantastic characters that you just like everybody, even though like some people you don't want to like. And they're all just really compelling and fleshed out, even side characters that aren't there very long. Case in point, the Guardians. They're not there. Well, they're introduced just to be taken out of the scene.
There's a pretty genius way that they introduce them.
Yeah, it's so good. And then, yeah, so I think this was a great show, and I can't wait for seasons 2 and 3. And then even, I mean, just the fact that we're even talking about it on the podcast shows that like any sexuality in the show is really just by dialogue or non-graphic, non-nude situations. But
is there anything in the show? I do not remember at all.
Dialogue between Omni-Man and his wife, because that's what couples do and to make their children embarrassed. And then there's just a drama point with Adam and Eve that sort of just has to do with like, yeah. But otherwise, like, there's nothing there to be like worried about in that sense. It's just, you know, you still might want to be a little more adult to watch the show because it can be so violent. Really, really violent.
Yeah, a friend of mine asked, like, "Oh, is this a show I can put on while like my kid is in the room?" And
no.
Everyone was like, "No."
Yeah, 100% no. They would be going to the center by the time they're 20 because of this, because you put it on when they're in the room.
So I will say right off the bat, from here on out, I will say like just go watch the show. From here on out, we're going to address some what are technically spoilers, but they're introduced very, very early on in the series. But I think part of the power of the show is going into it blind with no context for what's going to happen, without an inkling of what is to take place.
Oh, yeah. My wife and I had no idea. I just knew it was violent.
Yeah.
And I knew it was a Kirkman property. That's it.
So, yeah, it's a little cynical with Robert Kirkman's. He seems to lean towards nihilism, which is something we'll get into in a little bit. But there's the end of the first episode is one of the best hooks for a television show I've ever seen, where it guarantees that you were, all right, I got to watch this. I got to see what happens next.
Or totally traumatizes you and you never want to watch more.
Or you're like, nope, not for me. But yeah, either way, you're going to exactly know whether or not this show's for you or not. So, but just to spoil the ending of the first episode, the first episode is great in that it really does a great job of establishing the world that we live in here. This is a world with superheroes. Superheroes are borderline celebrities. They exist in every country. There are also villains in the traditional sense, though I think later on the show does a good job of kind of giving more context for why they're villains. But you really get a sense for like, this is a world that has superheroes. They've been around for a long time. People venerate them as things to be, they're aspirational. And they're specifically a group that is essentially this world's version of the Justice League. And Omni-Man works with them. He's not a part of them, despite their best efforts to try and recruit him. And the United States government works alongside superheroes. They help send them on missions. They help give them info for things that are going on. And there's an extended sequence where, first off, we see the version of the Flash, and he's talking to his girlfriend, and she's complaining that he's always on the run. He never stays in one place, and she's trying to tell him that he wants him around more. And then we see that he gets signaled to go to their base. And then we get an introductory, 2-minute scene with each hero where we see that these are people with lives. They have jobs. Their version of Martian Manhunter is a fun kid sidekick that he takes care of.
Mm-hmm.
Their version of Wonder Woman seemingly, possibly either has a business or a romantic partner. It's never really fleshed out. But they take the time to introduce these characters. They play on the fact that we're familiar with the tropes of them, or our brains can fill in the rest of the gaps. And then they all show up to the base, and Omni-Man, with no warning or reason, just viciously, violently murders them. And it is graphic. The Flash is punching him, and he's getting held in place, and he's punching so hard that his hands break, and you just see his limp nubs hitting his Omni-Man's chest. He crushes someone's head. He twists Wonder Woman's head around to break her neck. He punches through this green ghost character. It's horrible. Their version of Aquaman's body just explodes, basically.
Yeah.
It is shocking. It's sudden. There's no music. You just hear the crunching and crumbling and gooey sounds that come with horrible murder. And it's just this great moment of oh, okay, this is the show we're watching.
Right.
And it's genius because in the comics, I've not read them. My friend Liam is a huge fan of this series. When it was coming out, he tried to get me to read it. He gave me the first collected volume. It's sitting on my shelf. I have not read it yet. But apparently they don't give this mystery away as quickly. And what the show does is so smart is they immediately go, no, there's something off with Omni-Man.
Right.
So the whole show, there's this running thing where you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting
for him to lose it.
Well,
so anytime he's in the scene, there's suspense going on. Anytime he has dialogue, you're thinking but you just freaking murdered these guys, but now you're being nice to your son, and you're
and you're a loving husband.
Yeah, and so it makes this really what is the Hitchcock thing? Surprise is two men sitting at a table and then the table explodes, but suspense is two men sitting at a table, but the audience sees the bomb underneath it and doesn't know when it goes off.
Right. Yeah.
And that's this show. So from the first episode, you're like, oh, Omni-Man's the villain. And then episode 2 is come on, son, let's go play catch. And you're
it's a heartwarming scene.
Yeah. It's so wild. And so you keep watching because you're waiting for him to either go off or do something crazy because you're trying to learn just one more bit of information about why he did it.
Yes.
And you just can't keep learning. And it's just great. But then, you're not actually learning why he did it. You're just learning about the complexities of him as a character. And so then it just makes it harder to be wow, I like this character, but he just out of nowhere murders these people who are saying, what are you doing? And then even as they're fighting him to try not to die, they're like, someone must be controlling Omni-Man. But as the show's going on, you're kind of I don't think anyone was controlling Omni-Man, but why did he do it? So it's just such a good hook to keep you watching.
It is such a smart creative decision. It's a good example of somebody adapting his own material and being you know what, if I can go back then do it again, this is what I would do different.
Yeah.
Because what it does is it adds a certain level of menace to his character, where throughout the show there see these brief glimpses where he'll make a comment or he'll kind of say something offhand, or you see him kind of get frustrated. And it adds this extra layer to every action and decision he makes. And so,
because you've seen what he's capable of doing, and how he can just basically belittle the humanity of particular characters to get what he wants. And so you're just oh man, please, nobody backtalk to this guy. I'm not ready to see more murder. Please. It's wild, dude. And we haven't even mentioned that it's J.K. Simmons. And so and he's just always has a very domineering voice, but then he can just switch to this very comforting voice. And so
fatherly,
it's just
comforting.
such a good performance for him. It's great.
Especially because he's known for his like J.K. Simmons is perhaps most famous for his like almost over the top domineering performances. Like everyone loves him in Whiplash, where he's just verbally abusing Miles Teller. Which we can't blame him. Like, but
the script called for it.
Yeah, it's funny listening to people talk about him on set, where he'd be like he'd go out of his way to be nice to everyone between takes and be like,
"That's sweet."
Or of course, J. Jonah Jameson, where he's like just it's very cartoony performances. J. Jonah Jameson
so perfectly cast that all comic book depictions of him have been totally reshaped to just be him.
Essentially. Like, an Amazing Spider-Man, they didn't even have J. Jonah appear on screen, and then when the MCU did it, they were just like, "We'll just get J.K. Simmons again."
Yeah, just do it again. Who cares?
but here it's such a restrained, measured performance where you can hear his voice when he gets a little frustrated, a little upset. And because of what we know about his character, or at least we know the potential of his character, right, anytime he's given like fatherly advice, like you gotta be ready for someone sucker punches you, or you gotta be strong to make the right decision when it calls for it, that's right. We're just waiting for the foot to drop, and it's great because once the other characters start catching on, we share their frustration, we share their just like their desire just to understand.
Yeah,
like it's not so much, everyone pretty quickly gets either an inkling or fully knows that Omni-Man did it, but what they're looking for is context. What they're looking for is a reason. And we're very much also invested in that mystery. I would also like to give special commendation to Sandra Oh, who voices, I just looked up, Debbie is her name, Omni-Man's wife, Mark's mom.
Super good.
She's great in that she is just as strong as any of them. There's a great scene early on where Mark is practicing his superhero landing in the backyard, and he's creating a lot of holes in the backyard, and his mom's just like, "You go to bed," and he's just like, "Well, why don't you make me?" And she very quickly puts him back in his place. She's like, "Oh, like you think you're strong just because I can't physically make you do something that makes you feel like a big man," and it just immediate like cuts him down the way a parent should in that situation. And they have a beautiful bonding moment where she recognizes her place in the universe compared to her two superpowered family members.
Boys. Yeah.
Her two superpowered boys. BOIS. And,
yes, exactly.
But throughout she stands up to Omni-Man. She always tells him exactly how she feels. She tells him when he's being a jerk. She is just as strong as any of them. And it's great. So the principal three voice actors all put in the work. And it's just, they anchor the entire show. Like, you just really want to see maybe this family can work it out. Like, maybe there's a way that maybe they can rehabilitate Omni-Man. Of course, by the end, we realize that there's no chance of that. But
maybe I don't know. I mean, he does a lot of that stuff. But storytelling is the place where Darth Vader, a child killer, is redeemed, and everyone accepts it, and that's why they have Darth Vader
favorite character
toasters and Darth Vader magnets on their
dancing at Disneyland.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. In front of children. You never know when he's going to lose it. Oh, man. So, yeah, I mean, we could see. I mean, now at that point, I mean, do we want to just open it up? I mean, 25 minutes in now. Look, if we have not convinced you that the hook is enough to go watch the series, then you don't care if we just talk about everything and our hopes for the future.
There's three main things I like to talk about, but
I just want to say, like, I think it's interesting how I like stories that really draw on deep emotions for me and really like almost like enrich the current emotion you're feeling. So like any movie can produce feelings in me, sure. But like the reason Inside Out is so enjoyable for me is because it really digs up personal emotions for me. Well, the reason we were going to talk about Inside, but we'll be doing it later, is because again, it causes me a lot of frustration and anger while also compassion and connection and care and love that is so strong that it's like overwhelming to the point of exhaustion. And then Invincible kind of does the same thing, especially in its last two episodes, where it's like parts of it you feel sick, parts of it you feel frustrated, parts of it you're angry, parts of it you're you're confused. Parts of it you wish you could close your eyes, but because it's a train wreck, and it quite literally is a train wreck, you can't look away. And and then the like actual climax, the moment of decision of the show, is Invincible still extending a hand of care to the father that's just obliterated him by Omni-Man's decree of like, and we'll get into context, but I just, I'm ranting, I'm going, but like just Omni-Man's line of just like,
I can't stop him, folks. I tried.
Right, can't. This is specifically for people who've seen the series because then they understand the context. But Omni-Man just going like, who are you going to have left? What does it matter? Let's roll these people. Who are you going to have left? And Invincible to just be like, I'm going to still have you though. Like, I'll still have you, Dad. Like, why are you hurting me? We're both going to be alive for like 6,000 years or something. And it's just like, so on top of all of the trauma and the frustration and anger that you've just experienced, and I think the directors of this project so rightfully knew had to be like tenderly handled, culminate into this moment of love that you're just like, come on, like can't handle this anymore. And then expertly does 30 minutes of resolution for basically every character, including the blue scientists whose names I never remember, but are my favorite characters in the entire series. So it's just great, dude. I'm excited to hear what your three things are, though, because I got nothing except like fangirling over here, basically, for this series, and I just can't wait for the next season. I just hope it doesn't like nosedive, because the boys apparently did. So we'll see.
Well, first off, there's quite a bit here. If you're a superhero fan, if you're somebody who is familiar with comics or is just through, just the fact that it's the dominating pop culture thing. If you've watched a lot of superhero television shows or movies, this show uses all those tropes to its advantage, where they have like a Teen Titans team called Teen Team, who are apparently the third best superhero team according to Instagram,
like most highest influencer or something. Yeah,
who serve as great friends for Invincible. They include a mixture of John Constantine and Etrigan the Demon from DC Comics, in that there's a Damien Darkblood, who is like a demon detective, which I thought was back. Super fun. Yeah. But perhaps what I love most of all the extra details is the presence of someone named Cecil, who is a government CIA guy.
Yeah, who's his voice actor again?
Walton Goggins.
Yeah, he's so good, dude. He killed. I will always be the person to say people should watch Fat Man from last year, but he has such a good performance in that because he's just hamming it up.
He plays a semi-cult leader pastor guy in the movie Them That Follow.
Mm-hmm.
If you're like, man, it sounds like Walton Goggins would kill at that role, you are correct. Jim Gaffigan also plays a parishioner in his weird snake church. It's great. But yeah, Walton Goggins is one of our most like gifted character actors, puts in another predictably awesome performance as this totally neutral CIA guy. He is neither a good guy nor a bad guy. He's just trying to do his job in the underhanded way that the CIA does things. So they take all of these elements that you've probably seen in a million other comic booky things, and they just recontextualize all of them in a way that's really interesting, where you sort of see, all right, if you're a CIA guy and you're trying to just keep everything together, like, okay, this Justice League is dead. We got to find a new team. So they're trying to get a new team of people in, and they're having tryouts and stuff. Every time,
that was fun.
Every villain they stop, the CIA somehow recruits them or brings them into the fold.
Right.
They stop a mad scientist who's making robots in the sewer, so they just like eventually just hire him to make more robots.
I wish they hired the seismologist who gives himself brain damage every time he uses his powers.
Who also he is an undergrad in gender studies,
feminist studies. So funny. And what was it? His reason for going after Mount Rushmore was because he's like, we should stop idolizing slave owners. So he wants to destroy Mount Rushmore. And everybody watching the show is like, yeah, it's not a bad idea. Like, all right.
What a surprisingly altruistic and
you figure Christians would love it because it's like, hey, idol worship, pretty bad. Yeah, I think carving 4 people's heads in there is pretty bad.
He's also trying to kill people just looking at Mount Rushmore, though, so he's a bad guy.
Oh, that's right. That's how we call him a villain. I think he's just a complicated man doing his job.
This guy, who among us doesn't have our shortcomings?
Hang-ups.
But perhaps my most favorite of all is a character simply called Robot, who's voiced by Zachary Quinto.
Oh my goodness, great.
He's a great character where I feel bad because there's so many great things in the show that get totally overshadowed by the Omni-Man stuff. But my favorite little bit is you see a character named Robot, who's voiced by Spock from the recent Star Trek films. And he's sort of the leader of Teen Team, and then later the leader of the New Guardians team. And one of the people that gets recruited is called Monster Girl, who is a girl who can transform into a monster, but it's revealed pretty quickly that every time she transforms into a monster, it takes like a week off her life. Like she de-ages a week. And so initially when she got her abilities, she was like in her mid-20s, but now she's like, looks like a teenager. And Robot takes an interest in her. And I'm not going to quite give away what it is here, but they have this really interesting, tender relationship that develops throughout the show, where you learn things about Robot. And it's also one of those things where there's all these loose elements in the show. There's your favorite characters, the Mahler twins, who are one of them's a clone.
They were so so fun, and they have good banter, and they have banter. Like they're just complex. I don't know. They're so fun. Like even what was the guy that he injured when they break out of prison, and then later they see him again, and he's just like looking good, or like sorry,
and he just has like an arm in a sling.
Didn't kill him. They didn't want to kill him. Whatever. It's just so funny.
And his Robot's whole story helps tie because they're just in the show essentially for a while, and you're like, I don't know why they keep showing these guys, but then
because they're awesome.
Pays off. I mean, they're fun characters. There's not a character in the show that I'm like, you could have cut them out.
Right.
But the other trope that they play with really well that I love is the whole superhero has a normal girlfriend thing, where Zazie
they do it really well.
Yes, Zazie Beetz is in the show as Mark's love interest, and of course, Mark is just terrible boyfriend because he's also a superhero on top of just being an awkward teenager. And she just puts up with a lot of his like being tardy and just not being great for a little bit. And eventually they actually invert the whole thing of like, okay, I got to tell her my secret identity. And they handle it in such a mature, interesting way that it forces Mark to be more mature, that it kind of like saved that whole thing. I mean, Zazie Beetz is great. She's super charming, super charismatic. And they write her really well, where she's a great sort of counterbalance to Mark being his kind of aw shucks charm. But that to me, all of that really pays off really well, and it kind of helps fill out Mark as a character.
Well, it's sort of like in regular show, the whole episode of is Mordecai being friend zoned? No, he's just being like pathetic and weak, and needs to just share what. Yeah, he's just being lame. He just needs to share his feelings. I like that in this show. Yeah, they cleverly resolve it in a way that's like, Mark recognized the problem of dating a normal person, and could have just either dated a super or come clean right away, because everything else is going to be way too complicated, ridiculous, and hurt the other person in the process. And I like that they don't basically put the onus on her to basically say, oh, I get it, you're justified. Yeah. It's actually, no, like I sort of forgive you, but I'm very still frustrated that you were too cowardly to just come clean. That's really the problem, is he didn't just come clean.
Exactly. And so many of these shows, what they do is they almost kind of like put the significant other, typically it's a girlfriend character, where why can't she just understand that he's got so many more important things to do?
Why can't the woman just understand that the man has work to do? It writes itself. And for years, a lot of dudes, because they were the ones consuming and producing the media, thought that was all that it was. But in actuality, it's maybe you should take some time off your job, like Omni-Man. What a complex and positive example that this show gives.
He takes his wife on vacation and doesn't stop a dragon. He's great.
She goes, yeah, that's right. I totally forgot. Yeah. Sometimes you got to kill the Guardians. Sometimes you got to take your wife on a date. Men are complex.
or the girlfriend is just an idiot.
Yeah, they do that too. It's so annoying.
Like, how do you not know that he's Spider-Man, Superman, or whatever, Especially like, I like that so many more recent versions of like Lois Lane, for example, they make it clear that either they talk about it pretty quickly or Lois Lane catches on really quickly because she's literally a reporter. So it's like her whole thing is
investigative journalism.
So,
and then what is it? Superman and Lois just skipped that. It was like, forget it. 5 minutes. They get married. They have kids. All right, here's the show.
that first episode's so good, man.
I've been meaning to check it out. I saw on a movie database it's got like an 80% rating. I'm like, that's pretty solid for a TV show.
It's kind of what Smallville is very special. Smallville gets too much retroactive criticism because of like the time period it took place in. This was pre superhero boom, so it's like not their fault. But it really is kind of what Smallville should have been, which is Smallville. The Lois and Clark stuff in Smallville is incredible. It's very underrated. Their versions of Lois Lane Clark Kent are some of the best that have ever existed. But it was also very much a WB-CW show where like there's no comic book characters, there's no villains. Lois and Clark fixes that problem right away. So it's all of the stuff that I love about Lois and Clark with all the great villains and actual special effects. So that's my little recommendation in the middle of our episode.
Yeah.
But all of this is window dressing because the thing everyone wants us to talk about is the last like episode of Invincible, which is one of the best season finales of any show I've ever watched because it's so satisfying. It brings everything to a head. All of this tension, all the things that we're talking about, the issues with Omni-Man and his wife, the issues with Mark and Omni-Man, the issues with who is Omni-Man? Why did he do this?
Right.
Why did he kill the Guardians? What's going on with Robot? Like everything comes to a head in the final episode. And it's just, it's a borderline masterpiece. And I don't know if you had thoughts on it or...
I just remember going to work and telling my boss about it. Not the episode, but just Invincible. And he's like, yeah, I've had everything spoiled for me, but because of that, I get to enjoy the memes. Like this one TikTok meme where a dude is getting ready for work. Finally, my first day working the subway. Wait, is that Omni-Man? and so that's my contribution.
Oh.
No, I gave it way earlier at like minute 25 of this episode. But like I just thought it was really, it's gripping. It like you summed it up perfectly. It is the culmination of everything you've been watching the series for, even the teen team growing to become the Guardians and then growing how to be more than just a bunch of heroes that are on the same battlefield to a team working together. They handle incredibly well the culmination of sort of like the family dynamics of just how horrible it is to learn that your dad just murdered the Guardians, thinks your mom is just a pet, and then is disappointed that you got your powers because now you're an enemy and not just somebody he can control or rule. It's quick cutaway to the baseball game while he's just wailing into his son. So we get context of like that one moment of hope that Omni-Man actually starts to understand the joy of life as opposed to just like the domineering nature of taking over a planet. It's just good, man. I almost like part of the reason I want to watch the series again is just to get to that ending again and to just like almost experience it again. Cause this is part of what makes watching and reading and engaging stories so exciting is when you find the one that, when you rewatch it, it'll be better. And like watching Invincible will be improved by what we know by the ending. And it'll just make like moments way more powerful. It's sort of like how like with WandaVision, you already knew like it's not going to end well. And that's what makes it so compelling and really strong. And Invincible has that same energy because now we actually know that it didn't end well. I mean, it ended well, but it doesn't end well for like a couple thousand people, maybe a couple million. And there's just a lot of like, I don't know, there's like a lot of excitement for season 2. Even like how, what was his name? The guy
Seth
from
Rogen.
Seth Rogen, yeah, his character, how he shows up for a minute.
Oh man, this show has so many great characters.
Yeah,
that are just like in like 15 minutes.
And Seth Rogen's such a good VA. He always sounds like your friend that you really enjoy playing video games with, because he always has the good like interactions.
I think he's a producer on this show too.
I think Seth Rogen produced The Boys. I can't remember.
He did Boys. He did Preacher. He did.
Then he probably did this too. I mean, he's clearly a Garth Ennis fan, so I'm sure he's also a Kirkman fan. Yeah, I don't know. It's just good, dude. and like there's so much stuff. What else is there to talk about? Like,
so
it's great.
I mean, just for context, for some reason, if you're listening to this and haven't watched it, basically it all comes to Omni-Man fesses up to killing the Guardians. He explains that his reason for doing it is the planet he's from, Viltrum. The whole show he's been like, oh, Viltrum just sends out heroes to help different planets. And then it's revealed that his planet he comes from, what they did is they had a culling where they all just fought each other to the death. And all of the strongest people who survived then, were just the strongest Link. And I suppose they're the ones who then went on to repopulate Viltrum. But they started conquering planets and reforming them in their image.
And the form of like making the planet better is
quotation
taking over the planet and like basically being their rulers and taking over and providing them what they need. It's very much Super Saiyans from Dragon Ball and how Super Saiyans function. But
we don't know how truthful that even is, because Seth Rogen's character mentions that his whole planet was destroyed.
Right. That's right.
When they would. So who knows? But basically, his planet is Darwinism on steroids. That's essentially what Viltrum is. And so he killed the Guardians, to help make way for their coming invasion eventually. And he wants Mark to join him in this quest. And in my one thought watching this moment, where Mark has this great little moment where he defies his father and he says, "No, I don't care if I live to be 1,000,000 years old. Like, I'm not going to help you." And his father's whole position is like, well, what is the value of human life in the grand scheme of things? If they're going to be dead in less than 100 years, everyone is going to be dead, and mighty Viltrum is all that's going to be left. What's the point? And Mark is very much his mother's son. He has taken more after his mother than his father in all the ways that count, where he has absorbed all of his mother's teachings and lessons. He has inherited her humanity the same way that he's inherited his father's abilities and powers. And when talking to my pastor about this, to get a little ahead, my pastor, what he wanted is he's like, I really want to hear what Mark's eventual true rebuttal to his father's point is going to be, because all he has in the moment is just emotion. There's something inside of him that's like, no, this is wrong. It is wrong to kill all these people. These are human beings. Even if their lives are not that long,
right,
there's still inherent value in letting them live that out, And of course, it leads to what everyone is going to remember is just the horrific violence that we keep referencing. What makes it so horrific is it is Omni-Man just viciously murdering human beings in such a careless, non-passionate way.
Right.
Like the first indication of
like
this
the
is
equivalent of like just stepping on ants, which makes me sick already just to even say. And that's what he's doing, is just basically stepping on ants.
Or like when you're playing with The Sims and you like take away like the
the ladder in the pool so they can't get out.
Yeah, this is that.
Remember that? Do you remember that one Sims post that was the person makes him a house, but then he makes him a hedge maze around the house, and then like he has to work in like an hour, so he has to like the sim is programmed to have to go to work, so it goes and leaves the house, but it gets lost in the hedge maze. But then work is over, so it has to go home, but it's lost in the hedge maze, so it can never go to work or go home.
Omni-Man would see no problem with that.
Yeah, he would see no problem with what is it, Mr.
I was going to say Mr. Bones' Wild Ride.
Mr. Bones' Wild Ride, where it moves at 1 mile per hour and it takes like 200 years to ride the ride. Yeah.
It's that with gore.
What's wrong with that? Viltrum quality. It's perfect.
It's better than if they're wasting their lives in something else. It's that. It's basically that. In the first moment,
except a lot more gory,
except horrific, because Mark Invincible saves a pilot from a plane and he's like, "Thank you so much for saving my life."
Right.
And Omni-Man just shows up and just with one hand crushes his skull in front of Mark, and his guts fly all over Mark's face. And it's from there, it just gets worse.
Yeah, and then Omni-Man goes, "Oops, I got to get the other one too," and then zooms off before Mark can even respond.
It's
to like, you have no compassion or care for humanity. You're my dad, dude. What's going on?
It's heartbreaking on two levels. The first is his father's not just his father. His father is his hero. He's his idol.
Right.
He early
wants to
on in
be
the
like
show.
him.
He's tearful. He's crying because he doesn't feel like he's living up to his father's expectations. He's not as good a hero as his dad is. And he's seeing that that's all fake. His dad's been faking it this whole time. And so everything he knows about his world is falling apart. His dad's not his dad. His hero's not his hero. His role model is just a fake. And he is powerless to stop it. He cannot stop his dad from killing thousands and thousands of people in front of him. The most horrific one that we've referenced is he takes Mark and just holds him in front of a train. And there's this horrible scene where you just see waves of people hitting him and exploding. And then afterwards, there's a kid reaching for his mom, and Omni-Man just steps on him and kills him. And Invincible can't do anything about it. And he's still trying to save lives, and he can't. And it's inspiring in the sense that you see someone whose his heroism knows no bounds. He cannot do anything to stop him, but he's still going to try. Yeah. And it's in these moments that we really see him become
invincible,
the hero that, in theory, he becomes invincible. This is who Invincible is supposed to be. And his dad, who has solved I did not make this observation. A guy on YouTube, Captain Midnight, made this observation where it makes total sense that Omni-Man thinks this is going to change his son's mind. Because at this point, what problems has he faced that he has not been able to just beat up? He's solved every problem in his life through violence and blunt force, and he's trying to change his son the same way.
Right.
And he cannot. And so he's just on a cliff, and this is where all the memes come from. He's just punching Mark over and over again. And he's like, think this through logically. And his son he cannot break his son's will. No matter how much his fist may break his son's face, he cannot break his sense of morality. And so my pastor and I were just waiting for the moment that Mark, whenever he sees his dad again, because the beautiful moment you reference where, his saying, like, he's telling his son, like, what's going to still be here? Mom's going to be dead. Your friend's going to be dead. And his son just, like, weakly through broken, swollen face just says, I'll still have you. And there's a flashback where
it's making me emotional right now thinking about it. Like, I'm like choking up, dude. My eyes. It's gonna happen.
It's so beautiful because it's like the bond between father and son is still not broken, despite everything his dad has done. It's still there.
It's so evil, but he still loves his dad.
The most evil person to ever exist on Earth, arguably.
So bad.
But he sees his son's broken face. He's knocked his teeth out, and it reminds him of the image of his son with baby teeth in when he's playing t-ball. And so it's this beautiful moment where Sandra Oh his dad is there at a baseball game, who's comically jacked. He's wearing a t-shirt and he's standing off to the side.
Very Rob Liefeld. Yeah.
Yeah. Rob Liefeld shed a tear and he doesn't even know why somewhere. And he's like, this is stupid. This game is pointless. What's the point? Because I mean, if you're talking about the pointlessness of humanity, nothing signifies that more than children's sports. No one wins or loses. It doesn't matter. You're just there to make the kids feel good, And she gives this beautiful little monologue about, like, as we get older, we lose childlike wonder. We lose a sense of, like, what it's really all about. And she just, like, makes him watch. And for a brief moment, Omni-Man finally sees the value of humanity. And when he sees his son, this thing he's made, he's created this life, successfully hit an in the park home run. And he holds up his son and he's like, okay, I finally see it. And all this hits him all at the same time. And he's so overwhelmed, perhaps by the first time he's ever held these emotions. Because up to this point, we're given no indication he cares about anybody. He jokes about the Guardians who've died. He calls his wife basically a pet. But in that moment, he's overwhelmed and he just flies away. And he sheds tears. He said tears. And he just leaves. And we the audience have no idea what he's experiencing. We don't know why he's left.
Where's he going? Is he going to Viltrum to say, like, we got to destroy them? If he goes to Viltrum, would he be killed for basically
abandoning his post
or even having feelings? Like, because he quite literally is the toxic masculinity. And toxic masculinity is like, feelings are inefficient. I will just hold it in. And then I'll be an alcoholic and probably kill a family by running them over. It's literally what he's doing.
Get really into making boats in his garage in a bottle.
It's so that he's like it's almost like freakier that he's gone, because you're like, oh my gosh, this guy could fly through the core of the earth and blow it up by just coming back. It's just terrifying.
Yeah, it's weirdly one of the most life-affirming superhero things I've seen in a long time, partially because we see the actual weight of loss more successfully than any live action
Oh my goodness.
superhero film I've seen, except maybe like Logan, for example, where every single time Wolverine kills someone, it's terrible. But here it's like, yeah, without a hero, the sense of safety is gone, but like the sheer destruction. And of course, they're playing out the fact that like, oh yeah, everyone was always like, oh man, yeah, Man of Steel when they break the buildings. Who knows? Here, man, oh man, do they not shy away from showing what happens when a superhero breaks a building?
Yeah.
Children and women get crushed to death under rubble. It's horrible. And so they make you feel the weight of that loss. They make you feel the horror of what's taken place.
Right.
And in so doing, they affirm the value of human life. It's horrible when people die. It's horrible when they die on such a large scale. There's a great scene early on where we see Mark's first time doing a superhero thing where they're evading aliens. And he just goes, all right, I'm here to help. And no one stops because they're scared. So they're running and people are just getting shot in front of him. Their blood is splattering all over him. And it's like, oh man, this is serious stuff. When one person dies, you feel the weight of that in a way that doesn't happen in almost anything else.
Right.
So when Mark is saying to his father and he's saying like, these people, they have value. It's powerful. And what I'm hoping, and I'm saying this, but I haven't read the comics, so I don't know what's going to happen. I'm sure someone will tweet at us and be like, well, actually what happens is this, and it's horrible. But what I'm holding out hope for is, Mark, next time he sees his father, when he comes face to face with him, he'll have something to say about the value of human life. Because in a weird way, we see the difference between a Darwinistic might makes right, the strongest will survive worldview taken to its extreme versus this more idealistic, like Mark can't quite put a finger on it because he's not Christian, I'm assuming. But he's like, there's something about human life that's value. And it doesn't matter if they're stupid or if they're not going to live forever or if they don't do anything with their lives.
Sponges that just rip apart. Yeah.
Yeah. Or if they're like, ants and they are puppets to us. They're toys to us, but I know what I know is right. And so to me, that's so much more compelling than, I don't know, just like the millions
Marvel movie character number 6, just like kind of being a villain and then dying or something. Yeah. I totally get it. I totally get it.
The closest is Thanos, where he had like
for Infinity War, not for Endgame, because in Endgame it's a different Thanos, so it doesn't.
Well, there's
matter.
2 Thanoses in the Endgame, or literally any villain we've had so far in any of the DC live action films. Black Manta has a cool costume, though. Man, that's a cool character. I want to see more of that character. But yeah, that's Invincible, man. And the end point that I think really hits on the charm is Seth Rogen's character. He's an alien who works for some company or something that like tests the defense systems.
It's like space
of your
CIA.
company.
Like we've had Earth CIA, but here's space CIA, and that's who he works
He
for.
comes and he fights, and like Mark goes to fight him the first time they meet, and they quickly realize that something's off. He's like, stop. He's like, oh, you're going to use your timeout. You get 1 timeout. He's like, what are you talking about? And then he's like, oh, I'm just here to test your defenses. And then he's like, all right, bye. And then so he shows up again later and he's like, oh man, I got to warn you, there's a Viltrumite on your planet. And Mark's like, yeah, I know.
Literally right after we just like everything happens. We didn't even talk about the comedy in the show. There's really good comedy in the show.
It's funny. It's both. It's funny, yes, but it's also like it's funny in that way that like it's funny because you like the characters, so you sort of pick up on like the characters' quirks, and then also
it's not Marvel punchlines
funny
where they don't have really relevance to the character. It's like actual situations that are quite funny, and yeah, it's effective. What did you think of the fact that like how did you feel about the resolution post Omni-Man leaving? Because it is pretty long. We learn a lot from these characters during that time.
I thought all that stuff was great, and it's because it speaks to the strength of the characters that they made. Or I mean, I want to know what happens with Robot and Monster Girl. We haven't really talked about Adam Eve, which is a shame because first off, it's voiced by Gillian Jacobs from Community, who's just Britta again. Like, it's so funny how much
goodness,
like Britta it is.
She's going to have a scene where she needs to do girl talk in the bathroom, and every other character is like, no, we've given her a power she can't have. She can't handle it.
I love Community. But yeah, it's essentially Britta Perry again. Where it's a idealistic, very strongly willed
young woman.
There's another word I'm trying to like. She wants to change the world, but doesn't quite have a grasp on how to do it. And so she ends up going and helping the environment, helping impoverished communities. Right. It's like, yay, Britta finally did it.
She's literally Sam at the end of Falcon and Winter Soldier.
But yeah, basically.
You have the power to literally change atoms. Why did you just build yourself up like a playhouse in a tree? You could just like totally change everything on the entire planet and it would be better.
And they show her doing a little bit where she makes
criminally underrated hero.
Yeah.
And she's underrating herself. She's probably like way more powerful than she thinks she is.
They show her like making like barren wastelands like have vegetation again. Like, she could literally end world hunger tomorrow. Like,
yeah, she's way too powerful.
I love her dynamic with Mark, where they're just friends.
Thank goodness. Yes.
Thank the Lord that it's not some weird love triangle thing, because we don't need more of those.
It'd be so boring. Men and women can be friends.
Yeah, and she like speaks on his behalf to Amber, Zazie Beetz' character. She's like, Mark's a good dude. You just gotta give him a chance. There's a fun thing with Mark Hamill is in the show.
Oh yeah, love
one of his two voices that he does.
Yeah, Luke Skywalker and Joker.
Yeah,
that's it.
And he actually does a pretty good Chucky voice, but he's like the guy who makes all of the. He's the guy who makes all the superhero and villain costumes. Apparently, they like offhand reference that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's right. They do.
He's like an offhand. He's like a long time friend of Omni-Man. He feels betrayed, and so he's there to support Sandra Oh's character.
Yeah.
All the resolutions are great. And Mark's best friend, whose name I can't remember. What's his name?
Yeah, I can't remember either, but he was a really fun character. And he was the one that had the most classic 90s superhero cartoon design. Because of his hair. His hair made him look the most like he was ripped right out of Static Shock.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he looks like the Static's friend who...
Yeah.
Gets superpowers eventually. Like, he's good at machines.
Does he get super? I know he uses. Yeah, I guess he does use machines, but I don't know if he gets superpowers. I think he's
basically
just supposed to be smart.
They imply that because he spent so much time around Static and other villains, that a lot of the villains of Static Shock, and this is based on the cartoon, I've read the comics, get
like
their
radiation
powers
or whatever,
from
right?
some sort of radiation. So he's been exposed to so much of that low level radiation, it enhanced the abilities that were already there. So because he was already smart, it made him smarter. So he built gadgets.
Big brain time, dude. Yeah. We just went from big brain to galaxy brain.
I think he's voiced by Scott Melville in Static Shock. But so he's in the show and not Static Shock. Mark's right. Mark, and they give him they do tropes well. They give him a gay best friend, but he's like, it's just a thing about him. It very rarely ever comes up outside of the context of like when it's really relevant.
Yeah, like one particular episode. Yeah,
yeah. Like but he actually like tells Mark the things he needs to hear. Like, being like, look, you're lame. You're making horrible decisions. You need to work it out, man. And he has one of the first great post Omni-Man losing his mind scenes where like Omni-Man is like covered in blood. He's like, where's Mark? And William's like, hi.
Yeah, he's in the car and he's stuck. And then Omni-Man shows
hi,
up.
Mr. Grayson.
That's right.
But yeah, everyone gets a great little resolution. And the final line of the show is excellent, where they have a supercut where Seth Rogen's character is like, what are you gonna do now, man? And they have a supercut of like all these horrible things are happening. An alien race they fought earlier on is going to come back and invade. One of the lower level villains, who like his body is covered in rocks, is taking over the underworld, and he's like seizing power. We see that the evil mad scientist is making more robots. There's so many horrible things on the horizon, and Mark's just like, I guess I gotta finish high school. And it's just,
that's right.
It's all the charm of the show, where Mark, at the end of the day, he feels like a 17-year-old kid who's just in way over his head,
right? And
suddenly his world is completely fallen apart, and he's mature enough to give his mom space when she needs to cry. He has good friends that he confides in. He's shared his secrets with, and it's just life goes on.
It's a great coming of age arc for him. It's really good because he goes basically from the childlike excitement of I have superpowers to learning the responsibility of who he is.
Yes.
And then by the end, it's frankly totally reasonable that he's like, I guess I'll finish high school.
What else can you do?
Like sometimes you just have to wait. I mean, isn't that even one of the lines in the episode? It's like you sort of just have to wait till the next thing happens. So just go home and chill. Or maybe this was that was in Falcon, which I thought was a good narrative point. Was like they just have to wait till like the freaking the terrorist group just sort of showed up again to do anything.
You gotta wait till the Golden Gate Bridge catches fire or another meteorite's on its way.
And that's like good. I think you got to go live your life, man. So yeah, it was a great show. Can't wait to watch it again, and I'm looking forward to season 2.
Me too, but it's also so good that if they never made any more episodes, it'd still be a satisfying watch.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And quick sidebar before we cut into our recommendations at this point, it is important to mention that humanity does in fact have inherent value, created in the image of God. You were fearfully and wonderfully made. Christ died for you, and he independently basically creates your value and enhances your value apart from just being one of God's creation to having died for you.
Right.
And so obviously Mark's not going to just be like, Omni-Man, it's because of Jesus I have value.
It's like that one episode of Rick and Morty were on the train and like, what's the worst thing that could happen to Rick and Morty? Did you see that?
No, I have not. I've watched maybe 8 episodes of season 1 or maybe the entirety of season 1. I can't remember.
Their release schedule's so horrible. It's hard to keep, but there's an episode where like they're stuck in some sort of simulation or something. And they're like, what's the worst thing that could happen to Rick and Morty? And they cut to a scene where like being surrounded by villains and they're like, is this the end of our story? And Rick's like, well, maybe this one, but it's not the greatest story. You see, he just launches into a full gospel presentation.
That's awesome.
My pastor has also seen all Rick and Morty, and so we had a really fascinating. My pastor has some weird media habits. Like he will like he won't.
We should have him on the show.
We should maybe. I don't know if he wants to do that. I don't know if he wants to out himself as
we could
nerd.
Pick a show that is
appropriate,
safer.
But no, it's like I'm not a big fan of the Jesus juke, but I will say that like what is one of the wonderful things about having the truth of Christ in your life is that when confronted with, because there's so many people who probably watch that and they're just like, Invincible's right, but they don't have the words. They can't articulate fully beyond like, well, come on, that's messed up.
What is it? A general revelation that all people would recognize inherently that there is value to humanity, but they might not have the specifics. They might not have the reason why. They might not even have experienced the love that asserts why they have value, which is definitely a pervasive thing. I'm coming to find the more conversations I have with people is that they are depressed and anxious because they don't feel like they have inherent value and worth. And they actually feel that the things they do diminish their inherent value and worth, which is deeply sad because in some cases they're learning that from poor religious upbringing. That implies that the more bad things they do, like almost the more they have to do good or else they'll never reach that point of value and worth. And then in Invincible, like it's the last episode, apart from the dramatic visuals, it is feeding both Omni-Man and Invincible's philosophical argument that's going on with lots of punching involved, that like Omni-Man's saying like they don't have inherent value, they don't matter, what's the point? Let's just make their lives a little better, even if it's at the cost of a couple billion or trillion people.
Yeah.
And then Mark saying no, like actually like no, they do. In his actions he's saying that. He's not necessarily using the words, which like you said is probably the exact situation that most audience members have, which is they might not have the words, but they would like to think that they could handle a couple punches from Omni-Man and just say like, no, right. I don't know.
Well, it's interesting because like Omni-Man is blind to the fact that like looking around him, like what's wrong with what you're doing? Take a look around, but he can't see
it's
that.
It's right there.
You know,
it's right in front of you.
But yeah, like when you remove God from the equation, it's tough to find why shouldn't the strongest survive? Why shouldn't humanity be made stronger by the culling of the weak? You know, and sure, a lot of people can come up with a philosophical reason for it, or they might be able to to have some sort of reason for it.
I mean, I think someone in the 1940s had a reason for it. I can't remember who it was, but it's someone that a lot of people on the very, 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 very far right would say that he got it right. But I think he's wrong. But
yeah, with all due respect to Winston Churchill. But
there you go.
But like with the reality that like you're you're fearfully, wonderfully made in the image of God, formed in the palm of his hand, knitted together in your mother's womb. Before the pillars of the universe were put in place, God knew you, and that gives people inherent value. And that informs how we then go out in the world and treat others, to look upon another and to quote Les Mis, to see the face of God. But also to like,
not even just quoting Les Mis, you're quoting like Genesis 36 with like Jacob twice, one chapter after another, actually sees the face of God. I've seen the face of God.
Right.
Esau forgives him. I've seen the face of God. Yeah.
And I'm going right now with the church college group. We're going through The Gospel Comes with a House Key by Rosaria Butterfield. And one of her big points is the way that we look at others. And, when we see those who are weaker than us, when we see those who are in need, our hearts should be moved. When we see people who do not know the Lord, we should be moved to share the gospel with them. Shout out to Logan Sharp today, who's tweeting about, it's one thing to look at people and have your heart break for the lost, but like, what are you doing? Like, are you sharing the gospel? Are you going out there and doing something about it? In a scenario where Omni-Man and Invincible are fighting, do we really want to be people standing on the sidelines going, man, like, oh, that looks terrible. Like if the world is falling apart, do you want to run into the flames and save as many people as you can?
Well, it's like Sam Raimi Spider-Man. People of New York defending Spider-Man.
You best with New York.
Yeah, exactly. Except I don't know if it would go over well in Invincible.
God bless post 9/11 cinema.
Those movies are so good, dude. They're feel so good.
New York at least feels like a real place, though, in those movies.
I don't think New York has ever felt like a real place since 1 through 3. I mean, it's even 3. I mean, it feels like a type of New York.
Here's where,
just Raimi's version.
We keep hinting at it, but one day we'll talk about this. The Marvel Netflix shows do a great job of making New York feel like a living, breathing place full of people. Luke Cage, like his neighborhood is its own character almost. And if they were to get rid of that, you lose so much of New York, in my opinion. But that's an episode for another time. But yeah. Just in case anyone is confused, Melvin and I are saying human life has a value. It's created by God.
And that's God-breathed.
We disagree with Omni-Man and his stance that we should let aliens come and destroy all of human life.
And in case someone takes me out of context for the sake of the joke I made 5 minutes ago, I also disagree with Adolf Hitler.
and Stalin. And Churchill, who didn't
Mussolini,
like a lot of other people.
And a fair amount of the... racists that have also participated in running the United States. It's very fair.
Yeah. Human beings are fallen, and you give human beings power, and it just ruins them.
What a surprise!
I think that's a general rule of thumb.
Yeah,
and somewhere all the theonomists just got chilled on the spine. Like, yes, I'm not a theonomist for the record, but.
You just need to read a couple freaking books from the Old Testament to find out giving people too much power might not be a good idea.
No, yeah.
Solomon, I guess in theory, makes sense, but
should we have a king to rule over us, to tax us? And they're warned. They're like, yeah, kings are great.
God's like, they're going to send your sons to war. They're going to take your money and your land. But okay. So what do you got recommended for us today?
Oh, geez. Recommendation. So I'm going to recommend 2 books today. To start with, I'm going to give a recommendation for commentaries. Now, I have so far been recommending, I think I've predominantly recommended specific Bible commentaries, specific books, correct?
Yes, I think you had a Romans one, a Galatians one, and I can't remember the third, but yes, for the most part. 2 out of 3, at least.
Okay, so I'm going to recommend a 1-volume commentary. Now, oftentimes, if you're trying to prepare for a Bible study or you're trying to just get a quick reference, maybe you don't want to pour through a complicated commentary that has a lot of stuff about language or whatever, So sometimes you just want a quick reference. For that, I will recommend the Believer's Bible Commentary by William MacDonald. It is a wonderful pastorally commentary. It very quickly breaks things down in a easy to understand way. It simultaneously gives you all the detail you need while being a quick read. It is endorsed by both John MacArthur and Warren Wiersbe. So if you want a good range of the type of people that use this commentary, it covers every book of the Bible, Genesis through Revelation, in a way that is both has depth, but also is an easy breeze. I used it a lot when I was doing youth group and Sunday school via Zoom, or times where I just didn't have time to like pour over through many, many volumes and tomes. It's a great one-volume commentary. It's relatively inexpensive. I believe Christian Book was selling it for between $20 and $25. It's a wonderful addition to any library, and it's been updated probably a million times at this point. And there's also lots of little details in there. He includes some famous quotes from church fathers. He'll quote hymns and stuff as well in there. Great commentary. Highly recommend that. As for my other recommendation, I'm sure you can hear papers rustling. There's a lot of books coming out these days. Am I right, Melvin?
Bazinga. Yes, you are.
Oh man, this is banter is horrible. And so there's tons of books coming out right now. They're dealing with so many hot button issues. Fault Lines came out recently. And there's probably, by the time I'm done with the sentence, going to be 10 more books talking about race and race relationships and stuff. However, I think there should be a good book that covers all of these issues in an easy to understand way and at a level that even a teenager can understand. So for that, I'm recommending 10 questions every teen should ask and answer about Christianity. It's by Rebecca McLaughlin. She is gaining a lot of support and prevalence in Christian circles.
Name is familiar. I'm actually... As you're talking, I'm going to go look on my shelf. I think I have one from her. So keep going. You got this.
Okay. I'm going to vamp while you're gone. But so she
I do.
writes. Oh,
I have one. It's called Confronting Christianity.
Confronting Christianity.
So double support for her as an author. Continue.
Okay, cool. I love... If you may have, this the theme of this recommendation section is brevity. I love getting to the point, cut to the chase. I'm a busy guy with lots of stuff going on, as Melvin will tell you. The poor guy has to keep rescheduling all the recordings around me.
Which is why we've recorded several episodes in the last 2 weeks. And so we have a break for like a month.
So thoughtful of you. And so her book, she covers pretty much every possible hot button issue you can think of. She covers gender identity. She covers homosexuality. She covers abortion. She covers racism. And she does it in a very even-handed, fair way that everyone, if you're a Christian, can get behind. And it helps teenagers specifically, though I think there's a lot value to be read as an adult, how to address this. Because one thing that, if you are sending your kid to public school or you just have kids that are involved in the culture anyway, there are so many things that are getting thrown at them all the time. You have no idea.
If you're on the internet, you're getting so many things thrown at you.
If you are on the internet, you're already doomed. I don't know.
It's too late.
It's too late, man. I'm learning more and more from talking to parents and stuff that they're at a loss for what to do with their kids, because unless they choose borderline isolationism, there's just no way to sort of shield them from all these things. So this is a great book.
Yeah.
It helps you start those conversations with your kids or kids in your church or anyone you're a guardian over. And it also helps you sort of quickly refine your own thoughts on these things. The difficulty is, and this is where old people are getting really left behind, is that the nature of these topics and issues is constantly morphing and changing. When you even think about how we talk about sexuality now versus how we talked about it even 5 or 10 years ago, it's just so bizarre.
Crazy
how quickly it morphs and changes.
Yeah.
And I like to think of myself as a pretty plugged in guy, but I am trying to and failing to just keep up with everything. It's changing so quickly that parents and people, just older people in church, just it's not even that they can't keep up with the conversation. It's like another language at this point.
Yeah.
And so that's how we're losing the culture war in so many ways.
I mean, it's very much, and because it's scary for some people, it's hard for them to, I mean, it's one of the big purposes of this podcast is Act 17, the Paul and the Areopagus, getting to know the culture and then responding to it. And it can be hard to keep up. But as we're learning, we're able to keep up with and speak to it. And one key factor is, unfortunately, some of the people who do keep up lose the compassion that Paul has in
Yes,
talking to them. And so there's Christians who don't want to keep up with it because they don't want to become bitter. And then there's Christians who do keep up with it, who are then drawn towards the lack of compassion that Jesus carries all the time.
Yeah. And going back to Rosario Butterfield, like one of the things she talks about is like, she's not coming out there to change behavior. She's spoken out against things like conversion therapy and stuff, which I agree with her on these, where the way she came to know the Lord is she spent for like 2 years. She met with this pastor and they just had dinner. She had dinner at their house and they never shared the gospel with her, so to speak. But they treated her with such Christ-like love that when it came time to have those difficult conversations, she was ready to hear it and she was willing to hear it from them. So yeah, there's something to be said about like when you stare into that abyss of modern culture that it just jades you to everything. You just your heart becomes so hardened. And not losing that, to not lose that sense of, Charles Spurgeon talks about, he has a thing called, if sinners be damned, where he said like, if sinners be damned, then let not one go unprayed for. Let not one, go not hearing the word. If they're to enter the gates of hell, let them do it with their hands wrapped around their ankles, And so please do not lose sight of what the point here is. These conversations don't exist so you can argue with people. These conversations exist so that you can engage and build bridges with people. So that if you ever do need to give someone some tough love or have a difficult conversation, that it can take place within the right context of a loving conversation between two friends and not, two adversaries screaming at each other, which I know that's just Twitter, but that's, anyway, what's your recommendations, Melvin?
Mine's kind of amorphous in the sense that I'm just recommending people go to the gym.
What the heck is this show, Melvin? So what's happening?
That's what the recommendations are, man. It's just stuff that's going on that we just feel like could be helpful. I'm recommending gym exercise or just forms of exercise. I've been going to the gym since being at and coming back from the center, from my inpatient stay. Apart from just the general logistics and statistics, or not statistics, but stats, as if the world was a video game. But like, apart from the fact that like, yeah, cool, I've lost 20 pounds and like gained some muscle, working out scientifically produces more serotonin in your brain, and serotonin is the chemical for your passive feel good. It is your passive okay feeling. It's the I sit in a room and I feel safe kind of sensation. When that runs low, you're having basically a passive I'm in danger feeling. That's a lot of what I had before the center, and and that was compounded with many other things, which Bo Burnham's Inside will be much more useful to extrapolate on. But going to the gym, because it also helps produce more serotonin in your brain when you're not at the gym, it just makes you feel safer. It makes you feel good just by doing nothing. Now, the statistics that were often brought up at the center was just that when it came to comparing people who exercise versus people who don't and how they felt about life and themselves, the people who did 30 minutes of light exercise a week felt marginally better than the ones who didn't. Now, the 30 minutes of exercise was a light to brisk walk. And that is 30 minutes a week, a light to brisk walk outside. That is something a lot of people very much can do. Night walking is very peaceful and calming, especially if you live in a busy area, because now it's calm and sweet. Day walking is nice because you get to enjoy the sun, which, by the way, produces also serotonin as the light is basically going into your eyes. Your body is like taking that in, and it's really good. It's sort of like why, like if you're in a cloudy day and the sun comes out, you just smile and you don't really know why. It's because your body's like, heck yeah, dude, I'm a plant. I need this, but you're not really a plant. Maybe you're a lizard though. I don't know, but it's good. Exercise is good. I guess this is more of just a public health statement, but the gym in particular, like I lost 20 pounds and that's been basically over 4 or 5 months now, but within the first 2 months, I lost 15, and that was going 2 to 3 times a week. Just some cardio and a couple weights, lifting, and machines. And it's hard to get past that particular phase of like, it's embarrassing that I can't lift 10 pounds or 20 pounds. It's okay. Everybody was there. And what's more important is your physical health and your mental health than what someone else thinks of you, which I get is part of mental health. I get that. But when you can have a passive increase in your serotonin, it's a lot easier to overcome, oh no, is someone judging me right now? So yeah, totally recommend it. If Planet Fitness, I think, starts at like $10 a month. And if not then, and you're like a listener in high school, I don't know why you're listening to an Invincible episode if it's like 9th grade. Maybe 12th grade makes more sense for watching Invincible. But
kids these days,
your school probably has a gym, but like we're a couple of boomers over here complaining about kids now. But no, I mean your high school probably has a really good gym that you can just visit after school. I was even thinking like, oh man, if I use the gym at my high school, I physically would be a lot healthier right now. I'm quite healthy, but I could have just done that like 2 hours a day after school if I was interested. And they had a good gym. So that's definitely my recommendation is bare minimum, increase those serotonin levels. My actual recommendation, look into getting a gym membership.
So next week, can I just like recommend like hug your mom 3 times, or
yes,
just
absolutely, dude. Totally.
I'm never doing that.
I've thought of stuff like that, like call your mom.
I recommend getting a job, getting your hair cut, you hippies.
Thanks so much for checking out this episode of Cinematic Doctrine. If you enjoyed this episode, consider leaving a review and subscribing to the podcast. And as mentioned before, Cinematic Doctrine has a Patreon. For as little as $3 a month, you're opted into a once-a-month movie poll where you decide a movie we discuss on the podcast. There are other unique benefits that come with supporting the podcast, so be sure to check that out at patreon.com/cinematic doctrine. A special shout out to those who support at the Art House Theater tier on Patreon. Thank you so much, Mom, Dad, Melanie, Shirley-Ann, and Thomas. You guys are the best, and your continued monetary support is greatly appreciated. Until next time, stay cool. Want some Cinematic Doctrine swag? You're in luck! We've got 3-inch Cinematic Doctrine logo stickers exclusive for Patreon supporters. Perfect for your travel mug or laptop. Head over to patreon.com/cinematic doctrine, link in the show notes, and choose the independent theater tier. Doing so will net you other perks too. But let's be real, the podcast stickers are the coolest perk. So get yourself some podcast stickers by supporting on Patreon.